Huh? Okay. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So today inshallah ta'ala we'll be continuing from where we had stopped in the last lesson, where we had started to discuss in this book that is titled Al-Lubab fi Fiqh As-Sunnah wal-Kitab, that discusses matter concerning al-fiqh. So we had started we started the introduction of the author, where he kind of somewhat give us a layout. So first he talk about the virtue of knowledge and the people of knowledge, then to discuss concerning matters pertaining to the book that he have authored. So we'll pick up from where we had stopped regarding what he mentioned regarding his work. Aywa.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahi wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillahi qala ma'addif rahimullah. Chapter Introduction, page number 45. For all of these reasons, I have undertaken the writing of this book of mine, which I have called Al-Lubab fi Fiqh As-Sunnah wal-Kitab, the essence of understanding the Sunnah and the Book of Allah, and I have arranged it in the following manner. Number 1, the book of purification. Number 2, the book of prayer. Number 3, the book of fasting. Number 4, the book of zakah. Number 5, the book of hajj. Number 6, the book of marriage. Number 7, the book of sales and other. Number 8, the book of faith dealings. Number 9, the book of vows. Number 10, the book of foods. Number 11, the book of medicine. Number 12, the book of clothing. Number 13, the book of wills and testaments. Number 14, the book of inheritance law. Number 15, the book of punishments. Number 16, the book of requitals. Number 17, the book of blood money. Number 18, the book of judgments. And number 19, the book of jihad.
So, Bismillah. So, regarding concerning, as the author mentioned here, that you have compiled this book together, and also you have explained that how he have laid out his book. So, he mentioned the layout that he has followed in this book. So, you find that also of the thing that you find the ulama when they have in books of fiqh, that they have a system of how they lay out their book. So, the first of you have sort of first of the chapters that they'll start with regarding, they will start with what they mention as Abwab al-Ibadat. So normally in the books of fiqh, whether from within Mada'ib al-Arba, that they'll normally start out their books in fiqh by discussing matters relating to the 4 pillars of Islam, which is Salat, and before this we have Tahara, so they discuss as Salat, they'll discuss as Siyam, or Zakat will come after. He mentioned in this book that you have Kitabu Tahara, then he mentioned second as Kitabu Salat, then he mentioned Kitabu Sawm, Kitabu Zakat, Kitabu Hajj. So normally in the books of fiqh, these 5 will be covered. These 4 will be covered. He mentioned 5, Tahara, Salat, Siyam, Zakat, and Hajj. But so they mentioned these 5 first as they follow the hadith of Ibn Omar anhuma, where he mentioned Bunya Islam ala khams. So they mentioned that matters of Tawheed is discussed in the bab of Aqidah, and the matters that relates to as-salat, was-zakat, was-sawm, wal-hajj, then the books of fiqh will cover those matters. So he mentioned here, so ordinarily they'll have in their layout tahara, salat, then zakat. According to the hadith of Ibn Omar, so tahara first, second zakat, third would be az-zakat, as it comes behind salat, then sawm, then hajj. But in this case, the author put siyam before that of zakat. The author put siyam before that of zakat. Then the other section, they will discuss, as you mentioned, the other section that they describe as mu'amalat. So the first abwab will be ibadat, cover those 5 areas. Then the remaining, they will discuss as mu'amalat. And of those things, they will discuss concerning matters as an-nikah, buyu, and the other things that are mentioned. That with according to the madhab al-arba, then they may differ. You find that the Hanafi, the Shafi, and the Hanabila, they are more similar regarding how they organize their books somewhat. The Maliki a bit more different. The Maliki a little more different. So he mentioned here Kitab. So those who start out with first, more so they'll start with Kitab al-Buyu before Nikah. But others will start with Nikah, then they go into Buyu. But overall, these are the main chapters that will be discussed in the books of fiqh. So can someone give us a general outline of the things that will be covered in this book, as also would be found similar in the books of fiqh. Most of the order may be a bit different. The order may be a bit slight different. That of the thing with the Malikiyah in their books of fiqh, they'll have a kitab that they end with Kitab al-Jami', and they'll discuss things concerning adab. They'll discuss more concerning matters regarding adab, a person's conduct and behavior. So after discussing, so if you notice, there's nothing relating to al-adab wal-akhlaq, right? That is mentioned. You with me, Ikhwan?
No.
Nam? Hey, so there's nothing mentioned about al-adab wal-akhlaq. Nam? So the books of fiqh sometimes don't per se have a chapter specific to discuss those matters. Most of the Maliki, that they'll include this chapter as they'll put a chapter called Kitab al-Jami' or Kitab al-Jami', that they'll include like a general book, that they'll include things that relates to conduct and behavior. And so that's concerning, as you mentioned the layout here, as this would be the layout to be followed. Aywa?
So this book, Al-Lubab fi Fiqh as-Sunnah wal Kitab, contains all the books of Islamic fiqh and its chapters, accompanied by evidence and presented in a clear and simple manner, in order that they may be understood by the young and the old without blindly following any of the schools of jurisprudence, but rather being subject to authentic proofs and following the most authoritative opinions without fanatical adherence to any particular group. Rather, I agree with each group when the truth is with them, and I contradict them when they veer from that which is correct. And I do not expect any group or opinion from this, and I hope to Allah the Most High, who is able to do all things, that I will live upon that and die upon it, and that I meet Allah with it.
So that's the approach of the author regarding his stance regarding al-madhahib al-arba. So the author kind of somewhat give us a brief summary of his approach or regarding madhahib al-arba, that as he mentioned, that he kind of benefit from all the madhahib al-arba. So to benefit from all of them, and also have respect for all the imam of the madhahib al-arba. So respect for their efforts of the A'immat al-Arba, and also that to benefit from what have been recorded regarding their opinions on matters. But also with this, he mentioned duna taqlid. Duna at-taqlid li-madhhab min madhahib, where the person doesn't see himself as to that is binding, it is binding upon him to follow a specific madhab from the four madhahib. So he doesn't see himself as that he is obliged to follow a specific madhab from the madhab that established, but rather, as he mentioned, bal khudu li-dalil, but rather it's for the person to follow the dalil. So the person go along with the dalil. So whichever of the madhahib the dalil is with, then the person will accept this. So the person here, so the aim for the person studying is to go with the evidence, benefit from the madhahib, but not to have this, as he mentioned, this rigid, blind following of a particular madhab, but rather to take from, look at all, see the one that has the more clearer evidence in supporting the view that they have taken, and if their view is correct, then it will follow without per se ta'assub, without a person of a blind following towards, or fanatic following towards a particular madhab, contrary to what we find with some. Contrary to what we find with some. So following the madhab is not wajib for a person that he has to follow a particular madhab. It's not wajib. Even though, but you find that the people who are off that way inclined, they kind of somewhat try to present it as if it is wajib, that you must follow a madhab. And if not, okay, the person doesn't follow a madhab, what's the ruling regarding a person who does not follow a madhab? Is not what's the ruling regarding a person? So those ones who take the position you must follow a madhab, what's the ruling for a person who does not follow a madhab? What's your ruling? From your imam. From the imam. So that's concerned. So I said of those kind of stuff that have gone over the board regarding following a madhab. And also people can also have misunderstanding from some that believes that those who of the opinion you are not obliged to follow a madhab, that and think that a person doesn't know, that everyone can go and look and compare the dalil and try to find their own way through it. That's not the case. So for the army, the general Muslim, that he doesn't have a madhab, or what he does, he takes from the ulama. As for over that he asks a question and they give him an answer, then is they mention that his madhab is that of the mufti. So the general Muslim, his madhab is that of the mufti. As for the person who's a talib, who is studying, then madhahib are used as a tool to study, not per se that it is the objective. So it's a tool, it's a medium, it's a system to follow, but doesn't mean that the person, everything that is mentioned in the madhab, that a person has to hold to it. That's not the case, except for the one who is a muqallid muta'assib. Aywa.
This is because truth is made clear through evidence, just as the months are made clear by the phases of the moon, and the proof for rulings is like the pillar supporting a tent. And the seeker of truth is the guest of Allah, while controvertible evidence is the sword of Allah, by which knowledge is set free and disseminated. Therefore, it is not permissible for anyone to oppose the truth after he has become aware of it, nor are people required to obey a person simply because he is a scholar or an imam. People are only required to accept the truth from whoever brings it without exception, and to reject that which is false from whoever brings it, according to the consensus of the Muslim scholars, because Allah Most High says in the Quran, so after the truth, what else can there be, save error? How then are you turned away? Surah Yunus, ayat 32. At the same time, I have borne in mind the elevated position of the scholars and their followers, and maintain a good opinion of them, because an error committed by one of them was not done with an evil intention or a wicked motive. I have also retained a belief in their respectability, their integrity, and their diligence in preserving the religion and maintaining its correctness, for they revolve between one reward if they are in error in their ijtihad, and two rewards if they are correct, and forgiveness for their shortcomings.
So that's concerning the author explained regarding that, how concerning ad-dawat al-salafiyya look towards the a'immat al-madhahib. So as he mentioned that one of good thoughts of the imam and their efforts that they have given in trying to serve Islam and fiqh in particular. So from a'immat al-arba. But also, so I mentioned that you find that Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala have even written books regarding to explain the position of these ulama, that they didn't go out intentionally to go against evidence. So not that that they intentionally go to contradict evidence, but they may err. So he mentioned that they have errors, or not that they have excuse. So we have that we should offer excuse for imam, and of those excuses we might find that an alim may take a position based upon what have reached him, and sometimes that that thing that have reached him, that it may be a hadith, but he sees the hadith as not sahih, but others may, or a matter may be discussed and for him no hadith reached him, so he make his own ijtihad of qiyas. So you find that the imam that they intentionally didn't go out to go in contrary to an-nas, the text of Islam. But at times, at times things may occur where they were not per se correct, and as you mentioned that to offer an excuse for them, but also the person notice that this matter that they were incorrect in is not upon the person to follow them, but rather for him to take the truth wherever it may come from. So that respect for the Imam al-Arba and others, but without a taqleed towards any. Aywa.
But this does not necessitate invalidating textual evidence or preferring the opinions of any one of them. In the specious contrary, it is incumbent upon you to compare their sayings to the textual evidence and weigh them against them, then reject those of them that contradict the text and accept those which agree with it.
That's for the talib, that's not for the general Muslim. So what he's just mentioning regarding concerning a comparison between the aqwal of the imam, that is for a person who's a student. But that does not apply to the general Muslim, because he doesn't have the tools and that to make that comparison and then to see which one is more correct. So this applies to a person like the talib or an alim, that he will be the one to have this approach. As for the general mass of the Muslim, then their approach is that they take what have been given to them by a credible alim. They take from what have been given to them by a credible alim. Aywa.
How excellent is the saying of Abu Umar Yusuf ibn Abdul Bar al-Namiri al-Qurtubi in his book Jami ul-Bayan al-Ilm wal-Fadlihi. So my brother, it is incumbent upon you to maintain the fundamental principles and keep them in mind, and know that whoever pays stern heed to the Sunnah and the rulings legislated in the Quran, and looks at the sayings of the scholars of Islamic jurisprudence, making it an assistant to him in his ijtihad, a key to the paths of discernment, and an explanation of the whole of the Sunnah and all their possible meanings, and does not blindly follow any of them, i.e. the sayings of the scholars, in the way one unquestioningly follows the Sunnah, obedience in which in any case is an obligation without doubt, nor does he refrain from preserving and reflecting upon the Sunnah as the scholars did, and he emulates them in his research, his understanding and his study, and he lauds them for their efforts by which they have benefited him and informed him, and praises them for their correctness, saying, without absolving them of any mistakes, just as they did not hold fast to the teachings of the righteous Salaf. And it is he who profits from them and sees their integrity and good sense. And it is he who follows the Sunnah of his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the guidance of his companions radiallahu anhum, while he who exempts himself from study of the Sunnah and shuns that which we have mentioned and opposes the Sunnah based upon his own opinion, seeking to reject it in favor of his own views, then he is astray and one who misguides others. And one who is ignorant of all this and boldly gives legal verdicts without knowledge, then he is even blinder and further astray from the straight path.
Yes, that's the statement of Ibn Abdul Bar Ali rahmatullah ta'ala, one of the ulama of Al-Qurtubi, that he mentioned in his book, Jana Bayan al-Ilm wa Fadli, and this is a book that discusses concerning the adab and the adab and things that the Talib al-Ilm should be mindful of. So a book regarding the adab of the Talib al-Ilm and the virtue of ilm. Aywa, and a very important book in that field, a very important book in that particular field.
And you should know, O my brother reader, that the method which I adopted in compiling this book is, firstly, determining the sources and collecting the material for each chapter of the book. And by Allah's grace, they are numerous, such as the books of Tasfir of the Quran, in particular the explanations of the Quranic verses containing laws, the books of Hadith, especially those that pay attention to the understanding of Hadith, the books of Islamic jurisprudence, both those based upon the teachings of the madhahib, and those based on comparative jurisprudence, in particular those which are attentive to evidence, discussions of the opinions of those who oppose it, and their reply to them.
So he mentioned the author, then after Allah Ta'ala, then he mentioned as for the source that he used as reference. So as for his reference sources, that he's given an idea without specifying them in detail. Sometimes at the back of the book they'll mention, the books that he used. So he mentioned that of those sources, so it shows that a person in studying of fiqh and writing on the topic of fiqh, of these things that you have to take into consideration and refer back to as sources. He mentioned books of Tafsir Ayat al-Ahkam. So there's books that are written on this topic of ayat in the Quran that discusses matters of ahkam. So knowing those books and what have been said by the ulama on that particular topic. So for each madhab, they'll have a book. So each madhab will have a book on this particular topic. So you have the Maliki, the Shafi, the Ahnaf, all of them will have their book on that particular topic. A second group of book that he mentioned, Kutub al-Hadith. So also the books of Hadith. So you find Ahadith al-Ahkam, and that would be of the main evidence to be used. So books of Ahadith al-Ahkam, that being aware of those books and referring back to those books. Third, he mentioned books books of fiqh, books of al-fiqh, and of those books of fiqh, you have of those books that are, they mention each madhab of their own book that is particular to it, and only mention their view. So you have the books of the madhahib that are particular to each madhab, and you have books that only mention their views, or the views are different between themselves, and they don't mention the views of others. So certain books of the madhahib only discusses things related to them internal. Then you have other books, another set of books also whether of the madhahib or outside the madhahib, that they discuss, but I said fiqh al-maqarin, which is fiqh where they discuss a comparative type of fiqh. So they can somewhat look at what is said by all the madhahib and then try to make a conclusion. So they look at, so those books are called fiqh al-maqarin, where it's a comparative type of fiqh between the madhahib, what they say, then try to come to a conclusion based upon what is mentioned by each madhab and their evidences, and to see which of them is more correct, and whatever one is more correct, they'll go with the evidence. Then those are the books that he goes back to, and other books in studying of fiqh the person also need is book of ijma. So books that discuss concerning matters of ijma'at between the ulama, then also those books are needed in the area of fiqh. Aywa.
Secondly, examining the textual evidence and views of the scholars and determining which of them are the weightiest and supporting their opinion, whose proofs are strongest and clearest. And this is not invention, it is no more than following the evidence no matter where I find it and submission to manifest truth. Third, takhrij of the hadith and making clear the level of authenticity or weakness of every hadith. I have relied on the authentic or sound hadith as proofs, and I have rejected weak hadith and acting upon them as even as a basis for the excellence of deeds. I have accepted the mursal narrations of mursal narrations of the companions radiallahu anhum, and I have given priority to the hadith al-ahad over the practice of the people of Medina. Likewise, I have relied upon ahad narrations, even if they contradict what is necessitated by qiyas or established principles. As for sayings narrated from the companions, radiallahu anhum, I have mentioned their level of authenticity or weakness only if they are being cited as evidence.
Hey, so you mentioned of the next point that he mentioned of those 2 points, the second and third point, he mentioned that of the approach regarding that, he tries to take those judgments that based upon what have been mentioned by the ulama, and also the qawl, the view that he believes to be qawl al-rajah, with the qawl which seems to be the stronger view compared to the views that are there. So the views that are there, that you'll try to evaluate those views and then see which of those views seems to be more in line with the evidence, and he will go along with that view. Then he mentioned, I found that that's the approach concerning that that people see as it goes against what is called according to the madhahib. So this approach of trying to compare between the madhahib, some people see it as like it is it's an enemy to what they call fiqh of the madhahib. Now, which is not the case. I find that even of the ulama who also a madhab in general by way of its principle, that they can they will follow the madhab by way of the usul and the qawahid for ijtihad. So the kibar ulama, when they follow are attached to a madhab or affiliated to a madhab, that their way of how they approaching, as mentioned by An-Nawawi in his book Al-Majmu', that what they follow more so is the qawahid and the usul in ijtihad, not necessarily in every matter that they may agree, that they may fall in line with that imam, but they follow the usul regarding the general qawahid and principle they follow, and also the rules regarding ijtihad. And at times they will coincide with the madhab, and sometimes they may go against the madhab. So you find that approach been there by the kibar ulama, that sometimes mentioned as being immatul of the madhahib, but they are not muqallid. Ibn Hajar, and Nawawi, Ibn Mulakkin, and those that even though they may be an affiliation to a madhab or that, but they are not muqallid of the madhab. And at times they will go against the madhab. Ibn Qudama, Al-Hanbali. So you find those ulama that they may affiliate to a madhab, but they don't follow the madhab in everything. They don't follow the madhab in everything. And we find the same thing of contemporary, that you find that the likes of Ibn Uthaymeen, Shaykh bin Baz alayhi rahmatullahi ta'ala, that even though they may be said to be Hanbali, that they at times may go against the madhab based upon that there's evidence that is stronger that contradicts the madhab. So you might find that in certain points, the madhab may take a position, but the evidence that is there from the madhab is not strong enough. But elsewhere, you'll find an evidence that is stronger, so they will align to that madhab or to that view. But in general, they are said to be Hanbali, but at times they may go against the view of the Hanabila. And Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim, of the likes of those ulama, Ibn Rajab, of those ulama were off that way. Then also you find of contemporary, you find Sheikh Albani, that some people can somewhat, that Sheikh Albani was not for, of taqlid of a madhab. So Sheikh Albani was not for taqlid of a madhab per se. And again, that his view is ittiba dalil, that one follow the evidence. So you have a respect for the madhahib, but is still following the evidence that is presented even from the madhab. And others, so at times people might see that ad-dawat salafiyya is anti-madhab, which is not the case. It's just your understanding of salafiyya is incorrect. And maybe at times you're looking at someone who is not a true representative and you're using them as the scale. Now, but if you look at the ayim there, we said that the people who stand out as the ulama of Dawat Salafiyya, they are not about this. And people like, even contemporary, that you find that the likes of even Sheikh Fawzan and the likes, and most even the Mashaykh, Sheikh Hadi Mashaykhi, Sheikh Saad Al-Khatlan, who are known for their fiqh and said to be Hanbali and written books in Hanbali fiqh, but they don't per se follow everything in the madhab. So this idea that people sometimes try to attack what they said, Salafiyya, with that they do not believe in follow a madhab in the way that you follow a madhab. In the way that you, of those who are the muqallid, muta'assib, those people who compel that everyone must follow a madhab. As for that, as for the way that you see it, no, that's not the way that it is looked upon in Dawat Salafiyya. So it's a misunderstanding as to how you, those people, look at things. And you'll find also of a thing that the people who are known to be the ulama of hadith, the ulama of hadith who are exposed to hadith, that whether in the madhahib or outside, the people that they generally have a different approach, that they'll give more precedent to the hadith more than that of the qawl of the madhab. So the ulama of hadith, you find that that's something you'll find with them, that they give more precedent to the hadith, to the dalil, more so that of the madhahib. So you find that thing. So find it now, as for the system that the RTA that is mentioned, you find others who are preceded of those who follow madhahib and those who are outside. That I mentioned Ibn Abdul Barr, who said to be Maliki. Ibn Abdul Barr of the 4th century, who said to be Maliki, but he wasn't a staunch Maliki. He wasn't a staunch Maliki. You find that in every generation you find the ulama of that approach. Then you find a more contemporary time that you find the likes of Shawkani, you find the likes of Shawkani from Yemen about 200 years ago. Then you find the likes of Siddiq Hassan Khan, who kind of somewhat that they also were, not of those who favor a person following a specific madhab. They were not for this. They were for following dalil. So you find a Shawkani, and he have written his book that is called Durr al-Bahiyya, and also others, and Sheikh Albani also of that approach, and others of the ulama were of that approach. Aywa. So they mentioned that takhrij al-hadith also is important regarding that of the way of that also in studying of fiqh, that a person also give attention to hadith, because there could be a lot of evidence that is used will be hadith. A lot of evidence that will be mentioned will be hadith. So in studying of fiqh, the person then has to have some type of be familiar with a hadith by way of their sources. So with studying of in studying of fiqh, the person has to be familiar with being able to can the sources of hadith. Also, the person also have some idea regarding those hadith that are said to be authentic and those that are not, as the author mentioned. We also mentioned that for him that he stick only to trying to use hadith that are said to be maqbool. Hadith that are said to be maqbool, which is acceptable, which is hadith either sahih or hasan. And is, as I mentioned, that he doesn't per se believe or take the view regarding use of hadith which is daif, even in matters referred to fadal al-amal. So hadith which is daif, in matters of fiqh or fadal al-amal, that he doesn't agree with that approach or that view, Then he mentioned other things that he accept. Mursal al-Sahabi, Ahadith al-Ahad, Ala al-Medina. So if hadith is authentic, he would take it over that of the Amal of al-Medina, or the people of Medina, which is, that is more so with the Malikiyah. So kind of somewhat kind of put certain things in perspective regarding the approach that he follows. Aywa. So I said the person studying hadith or studying fiqh, they might have a clear guidelines regarding how they approach regarding the use of hadith. They must have a clear guideline regarding how they approach regarding matters that is hadithiyah, as to how it will be used in the fiqh that they are following. Aywa.
Fourthly, I have respected the consensus of the scholars when it is certain and when no contradictory opinions have been expressed.
So I mentioned the fourth being al-ijma. So I mentioned an important ingredient in ijma, in al-fiqh, al-ijma. So knowing concerning those cases where the ulama of a legitimate ijma, or one has been confirmed ijma, if that's the case, then khalas. There's no other view after then. So then an ijma, a consensus between the ulama, then there's no other opinion that stand against this. Because an ijma between the ulama, so any ijma that has been established, then it has to be honored. Then it's for us to honor that ijma and not to contradict a known established ijma. At times, you might have a difference with ulama regarding, is this, some might say an ijma on this matter, but then other might challenge to see, is this a confirmed ijma or not? At times, you might have the discussion regarding, is this ijma legitimate or not? Some might say the ijma, as they mentioned, Ibn al-Bar, we mentioned before, and also An-Nawawi. At times, they may mention ijma, but it does need to be confirmed. So at times, An-Nawawi, Ibn al-Bar, may mention an ijma on a matter, but it still sometimes needs to be confirmed. But ijma, as for what it is, if it's been confirmed, then no one should go against it. No one should go against it. Aywa.
Fifthly, I have applied correct qiyas when a common connection has been clearly established between root and branch, and there is no evident or concealed difference between them, and there is no accepted contradiction to it. Ibn Taymiyyah said in Risala al-Qiyas, page 10, Qiyas is a general term which includes correct qiyas and false qiyas. Correct qiyas is that brought by the Islamic law, end of quote. His student Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah said in Alam al-Muwaqqi'in, on the contrary, they, i.e. the companions radiallahu anhum, agreed upon the validity of opinions based on qiyas, and it is one of the fundamentals of Islamic law, and no scholar of Islamic jurisprudence can dispense with it, end of quote.
Hey, so I mentioned also of those things that one, in studying of fiqh, that one has to use as an evidence. At times, he mentioned qiyas. So I mentioned that qiyas, analogy, as it is translated analogy. But then he mentioned that Ibn Taymiyyah, alayhi rahmatullah ta'ala, that mentioned regarding al-qiyas, that al-qiyas that is valid and qiyas that is not valid. So al-qiyas which is legitimate, he mentioned al-qiyas al-sahih. So you have qiyas which is sahih, where it fulfill all the guidelines that are outlined by the ulama. So the qiyas that is sahih is that qiyas that fulfill all the requirements that are laid down regarding al-qiyas, that ulama mentioned in the books of usul al-fiqh. And then also you have the second type of qiyas, or mentioned as qiyas al-fasid, which is qiyas that is not applied correctly. So it does not fulfill all the criteria for it to be legitimate. So at times you might find, so something I find a difference between ulama, is this qiyas that is being used, is it used legitimately? Is it used correctly? So if it's used correctly, then it's accepted. But if it is used incorrectly, then it is considered to be qiyas al-fasid, and it is to be rejected. So that's the thing to take into consideration regarding matters of qiyas. But overall, that majority of the ulama do accept regarding qiyas being an evidence. They mention that the Zahiriyah, that they are the only one or of those who oppose the use of qiyas. So the Zahiriyah, that they oppose al-qiyas in their, according to the Zahiriyah. But overall, the Madhab al-Arba, they accept that qiyas is an evidence. A qiyas, if used correctly, then it stands. Aywa.
Sixthly, I have written the vowel sounds as required in the words of the ahadith, in names, titles and places, and in words which might be difficult for the reader. Jazakallah khair. Seventhly, I have avoided new jurisprudential questions relying on the rules of Islamic law and its principles and the stipulations of the scholars of Islamic jurisprudence. Having said all this, I do not claim to be infallible, because infallibility belongs only to the messengers whom Allah has chosen from amongst His slaves. All that I claim is that I have strived to the utmost of my ability to present a work which I hope will be beneficial for me and for the Muslims in the life of this world and in the hereafter.
That's the end? Okay.
If I have succeeded, then that was my desire, and all bounty and grace belong to Allah. If I have not done so, then it is sufficient for me that I intended well and strive to the utmost of my ability to attain that end. And deeds are judged solely according to one's intentions. O Allah, make all my deeds righteous and purely sincerely for your face, and do not make association of any partners in them. Ameen. Sana, Friday morning, the 29th of Shawwal, 1420 AH, 4th of February 2000.
Hey, so that's the introduction of the author. As we mentioned, the author, Rahimahullah Ta'ala, that I've mentioned, give us an outline regarding, first he started by mentioning the virtue of ilm and the people of knowledge. Then he went on to explain matters pertaining to some of the aqwal of the Salaf regarding some matters regarding of study and the position of the Quran, the Sunnah. And so he mentioned aqwal of the ulama regarding those matters. Then he mentioned in specific matters regarding the book that he has authored. So he gave us a layout as to what would be covered, so that the talib have a general idea of the things to be covered or what to come in this book. So he mentioned over 19 different topics to be covered in this particular book, that they're divided into two main areas, al-ibadat, and also what comes after would be mu'amalat, so general affairs. And this concerns us, so this will cover most of those things are said to be, that will be covered in what is called al-fiqh. So in the books of fiqh, these would be the normal topics to be covered. Some books of fiqh, as I said, muqtasarat, sometimes they may only discuss the first 5. Some books of fiqh may sometimes cover just the first 5, because the books are considered to be like beginner's book. And the thing that beginner first need to know is matters regarding ibadat. Right? So, but this book here somewhat, it follows what is the normal trend, which is our method of the ulama, is that they'll cover concerning things of ibadat, which start with tahara, then salat, then az-zakat, as-sawm, and then hajj. Then we'll mention that, and then what comes next concerning matters regarding al-ahkam al-nikah or usra. So matters regarding family related matters, which concerning that, getting married, divorce, khula, hadana, those things that are related to marriage and its related topic. Then discussing concerning al-buyu, different type of business transaction, things that and other things that fara'id, al-hudud. So all these things will be covered. So the person, and also jihad. So the person have a general idea regarding, or a general understanding of all the areas of fiqh. And in these books, they'll cover the main masail. And some will go, so they'll cover at least the main things that everyone should know is covered. And some would exceed those things, but it will cover of the most things. That he mentioned, the book is called Al-Lubab fi Fiqh As-Sunnah wal-Kitab, but also to take it to be aware that in fiqh, that the Quran and Sunnah is not the only evidence. So in fiqh, Quran and Sunnah is not the only evidence. So we have, as he mentioned, you have ijma, and also we have al-qiyas and other things that are used within, or what is considered to be Islamic sources in fiqh, Islamic sources in fiqh. Then the author can somewhat give us a general, clarify his approach, which comes to that his approach is something that anyone studying fiqh can use it as a template to follow. So it can be used as like a template to follow regarding if you want to study fiqh in any way, that one regarding concern that it's clear regarding the masadir. So regarding in studying of fiqh, what are the sources that you're relying and using? What are the sources that you're using to come to conclusion regarding something being halal and haram? So you mentioned different sources, and also the books that you have referred back to, that goes into matters regarding books of tafsir, but books of tafsir that mainly cover concerning ayat, al-ahkam, and books of hadith, books of fiqh, of the madhahib, and books of ijma. So the person knowing what are the books of references that I can use in matters relating to al-fiqh. Then he mentioned that matters regarding concerning his approach that more so a comparative type of fiqh. So it's not that he's not a blind follower of a set madhab, but to see what is offered by all the madhahib and then see as to which of them seems to be closer in their conclusion.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Alhamdulillah. So again, as mentioned here, that also I think just kind of someone to clarify to make clear that when it is mentioned that you find khilaf between the ulama, a difference between the ulama and comparative fiqh, it doesn't mean that in every matter that is discussed between the ulama or the madhahib al-arba, that each of them have a complete separate view from the other. With me? So one says this, or one says complete different. That's not the case. In most of the cases, you find that they do share the same view. In most, a lot of masail that they do, that you find that multiple madhahib or a few of the madhahib may share the same view. So that in many cases you'll find that they're completely contrary to each other. So one might say something is wajib, and other might say the matter is wajib, and other might say this matter is mustahab. But you understand, but really find that one said something which is wajib, and one said no, it's completely haram. You're not going to find those big differences at most of the time. So it doesn't mean that khilaf between the madhahib, that each take a completely independent view from the other. That's not the case. Most of the time they share views. Jumhur, meaning multiple madhahib are taking that view. And you find rare cases, not many cases, you find it says al-mufradat al-madhab, where you find that one madhab might take a view contrary to everyone else. Those are the least. But in most of the cases, they share similar view. They share similar views and not far away from each other. Then, so that's concerning something to be mindful of. Then he mentioned also the things regarding studying of fiqh. So as the person have a system in approach how to study fiqh and to come to and approach it correctly. Then also the person concerned is to mention takhrij al-hadith. So you have takhrij al-hadith or hukum al-hadith. The person also that the hadith that are being used, that a person has somewhat you can reference back that hadith. That reference by the hadith to which book of hadith mentioned the hadith. Which book of hadith mentioned. Sometimes you find the books of fiqh, especially those who does not give as much attention to hadith, mention hadith that, the hadith, they mention hadith by, it needs to be looked at. It needs to be reviewed. So at times, so the person also put an important studying of fiqh regarding the hadith that are used, and even athar as he mentioned. The person even can reference them back to credible books, credible sources, get the exact wording, because sometimes the books of fiqh, they mention hadith by way of mana, not the exact wording. So you find in the books of fiqh, at times, some of the books of fiqh, they mention hadith by way of the meaning, not the exact wording. So you look at, go back to the hadith in its original book, you see that the wordings are off at times. So it's important a person being able to reference back the hadith to its sources, correct to its sources, and also the next step is that the person, if a person, which is most of us, we're not qualified to pass our own independent judgment on hadith. So the person being able can go back to a legitimate alim, a bona fide alim in that field that are known to pass judgments on hadith. So knowing those ulama who have reached that level and have done that service in passing judgment on hadith, and to see as to what they say, and even better yet, compare if the person is able. So rather than kind of somewhat stick to one alim, what he says, everything I go, this particular alim, whatever he mentioned about is judgment on hadith, I'm going to take it. No, that's also can be problematic. So the person who has the ability then to compare regarding this hadith that have been mentioned, which of the ulama have spoken of that hadith, whether they have contemporary and of the past. So being able to also make that comparison or gather what have been mentioned by the ulama of hadith on a particular hadith, then that is the more correct approach rather than the person sticking to one individual, one particular person. Then that also can be an issue. Then he mentioned regarding concerning the matter regarding al-ihtiram al-ijma', and we have mentioned all those matters. So the person has somewhat, as we mentioned, have a system regarding how to approach studying of fiqh. How to approach the study of fiqh. So you have consistency. And not pretty understand. So a person who said taqleed, not of the ulama of the past. And if we said, if a person said, I do not make taqleed of Imam Abu Hanifa or Malik or Shafi Ahmed, then are you going to apply the same thing to someone who's contemporary? If you don't believe concerning ulama, those ulama from the Salaf. So if you don't apply to them, are we going to apply the same? We're going to apply what we reject for them to someone who's contemporary. Then that's not acceptable. So if taqleed in fiqh is not allowed, and is not allowed for the ulama of the past, then for certain is not allowed for someone who's contemporary. It's not allowed for someone who's contemporary. So, we said the rule apply across the board. The rule apply across the board, whether of those of the past or those of present. No taqleed to anyone, but one benefit from all of those of the past and those of the ulama of the present. Then, so that's concerning that particular matter. So, with that, inshallah ta'ala, we're gonna. So at times with our, he might, with hadith and all those things, that sometimes might just kind of somewhat from our side, just verify and double check. Cross-reference regarding some of his hukum upon the hadith, that we might mention others, or mention what has been said by the ulama regarding that hadith, and also at times that you may mention a particular view, mention the view that we may maybe mention a second view, additional view, if it is something which is a well-known view that is out there and maybe more correct than the view that is mentioned by the author. So if there's another view that maybe need to be mentioned, we might mention those other views. Mention those other views. So that inshallah ta'ala will end this session for today, and we'll start discussing the first chapter next week of this book. وبالله تعالى توفيق وهذا السبيل والآخرة الحمد لله آمين.
The person's asking, they pray the Salat al-Isha, and after they pray the Salat al-Isha, after they've eaten camel meat.
So I've eaten camel meat and they pray Salat al-Isha. Is their wudu, is their salat valid?
And they didn't make wudu, and they're asking if their Salat valid. You
Hey.
have to repeat Isha again.
So the person ate camel meat. And then the person, then the correct ulama that a person wudu is invalid. So the person needs to perform salat once again, that particular salah. And that matter to be discussed further inshallah ta'ala, but so the person in that case, then wudu needs to be, they need to perform salat al-isha once again. طيب وبالله تعالى توفيق.